Hi.
Hi. What's cooking? Good looking?
I just woke up from a nap.
You have a sleepy little voice?
Yeah, I fell asleep on the floor of Leona's room. She got home this morning from her trip. I didn't say it on the last recording because I was scared I was going to get in the night. But
Why?
Because I was home alone for like 5 days and I was just like too scared to say it out loud. But I've been home alone for 5 days. Who I feel like Kevin
a new person
McAllister from Home Alone. I Blaze and Leona left, and I turned into just like a feral human being. Like it was rough.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I was like, wow, I don't have my shit together if I don't have somebody to keep my shit together for. So
I understand.
Anyway, yeah.
Welcome to my life. If anyone's ever wondering why I just seem like I'm always living in a wasteland, it's because I don't have anyone else to have to worry about. So
I know, it was incredible. I was like, the first day was rough. Then I think I got it out of my system, and by day 3 I was like, okay, I can be a human again. I don't need to like live in my little hovel of my own making. So I got back on track, and I pulled myself together and had an enjoyable time. But now they're back, and we're back at it. But nothing scary happened when they were gone. So I was hoping maybe there'd be something ghosty to share, but nothing happened.
It's weird to hope that something ghosty happens for content, but to actually really hope nothing happens.
I think in the moment I absolutely did not hope for it. You're right. I probably turned off any sort of signaling because I was too scared.
What did Leona do while she was away?
They went to Connecticut to visit Grammy and Papa, and they had a lot of ice cream, and they went swimming a lot, and she went to Dinosaur State Park where she could collect rocks and geodes and fossils. It sounded like a fun time. Not as fun as me ordering sushi at like 3 a.m. and then ordering Sonic and sitting in my bed and eating all of it. So
yeah, that sounds much more fun for me.
Yeah, nothing quite so fun as that. But yeah, they're back, and I woke up early to get them from the airport, and then immediately fell asleep in Leona's room.
Great.
So before you ask, I'm drinking my venti drink, and I'm drinking a hazelnut oat milk shaken espresso because that's my favorite drink right now at Starbucks.
Oh, wow. What
about you?
I am just drinking a big jug of water. I haven't been going to really any coffee shops or anything in a long time, so I've just been doing water.
Whoa!
I mean, it's just easier. It just keeps me from having to keep refilling my cup.
I love that. It's humongous. Is that a gallon?
Yeah, I do better just carrying around a gallon. Because otherwise, then I have to think about getting more water.
Refilling it? Yeah, forget it.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
That's why I don't drink water. Then you don't have to worry about refilling it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, wherever on the range you are to the dirty little rats out there, thirsty little rats. I keep saying dirty little rats, but I'm kind of into it. To all the thirsty little rats out there, drink up or have a coffee, apparently. So don't drink water or do. It's up to you.
You can drink up. You can just drink up whatever you're drinking. You don't have to specify, just drink up.
You can lap out of a puddle like a real, true, thirsty, dirty little rat. You know?
Yeah, this is getting weird. But I was really excited because Megan, our social media gal, made Brat Summer, but Rat Summer, Thirsty Little Rat Summer memes to share on Instagram. That gave me a good chuckle.
Yeah, I know. I got a kick out of that. I really appreciate all of I don't know if you're keeping up with the news, but they're doing a lot of having to teach boomers what the Gen Z lingo is these days. And everyone's calling Kamala brat and everyone's calling Tim Wall's Midwest Princess, and they had to do a literal segment on the news about how those are good things.
Okay, yeah,
Loved it.
not wrong, you know.
No, I'm down with it. Anyway, I'm glad that you had some time off mentally from being a mom. I would need that all the time. So I'm
Thank you. It was
very proud of you.
Refreshing, and it was long enough that at the end of the last day, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I missed them so much." You know, it was that perfect timing of like,
Oh, that's nice.
okay, now what? I've done everything I needed to do. I had a seance. My friend came over for wine, and we had a seance, just the usual stuff. And then Leona, I was like, I miss her. And then the next morning they came home. So it was good timing.
That's lovely. I see. That's why I don't think a child is for me, because I think I would realize, oh yeah, I enjoy this a lot more. I hope they don't come back.
Yeah.
So I think I'm exactly where I'm meant to be right now.
I think you just kind of learn to know. Yeah. I think I don't know. I don't know. Don't speak too soon. I mean, listen, I had a grand old time, but I did realize I cannot keep my shit together when left to my own devices. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
And the animals are good?
Everybody's happy. The boys loved being with me all week. All of them
Gio,
slept in my bed.
Gio probably loved being the only one that got attention.
God, he became my firstborn all over again. It was such a pain in the ass. Yeah.
He's just like lurking in the halls,
He's
waiting
lurking
for you.
every fucking, not even in the hall, just like in my face, in breath in my face immediately, every second of the day. It's really annoying.
Well, I'm glad you had a little respite. Is there a reason why you drink, or is that it? That's a good reason why you drink this week?
I think the reason I drink is I got to live out my 5 days of pre-parenthood life, and it was fine. I think I just needed to get it out of my system. You know, I needed a few days of just like untethered, unhinged, like
Everyone needs that
feralness. So I'm
Brat
alive.
summer.
I'm back. Yeah, rat summer for me. Feral rat summer for me.
I have I think a fun little story for you today. She's an urban legend of sorts.
Okay.
And this comes out of Indiana, in Martinsville, Indiana. This is the Stepp Cemetery.
Oh, okay. I like a cemetery story.
I feel like cemetery stories are so hard to do a lot of the time because there's just not enough ghost stuff. Like I say this all the time, so I don't know. Here I go repeating myself for the 400th episode, but it's so hard to find enough information on so many stories. Where like, yeah, there's a haunted cemetery, but if the best I've got from like a dozen sources is that people hear a voice, it's like, well, how do I make that into a whole episode, you know? So luckily this is one where there's enough to work off of, and I feel like I never really get to cover cemeteries, which is so ironic because it's a paranormal podcast.
Yeah, you know? That's true.
Anyway, so here is a cemetery story for all of you. This is, again, in Martinsville, Indiana. This is near Bloomington, Indiana, and it's in the Morgan Monroe State Forest.
Ooh la la.
You already won't find me there because it's a cemetery, but I have to go through a forest first? Absolutely not.
I'm just lost. If you see me there, I've just gotten very lost, and please help me find my way home.
If you ever find Christine in the forest, don't even ask why she's there. Just grab her hand and gently guide her back to the road.
Just hold my hand.
So apparently this is also known as the Stepp Precinct Cemetery, but nobody calls it that. It's the Stepp Cemetery. Also, Have we noticed my hair today? I slept weird, and now I've got like this pompadour situation.
Oh, I'm seeing it now that you mention it, but I love a pompadour on you. It's like a very classic.
I hate it, but it's unstoppable. I have one hair. I have a hair situation where if I'm having a bad hair day, there's no fixing it. It's too thick that it just stays in place.
It has a mind of its own. Right.
I just have to embrace it. Luckily I only have a few bad hair days a year, so when
I like
it happens,
it's a little voluminous, you know. It's just a little.
It looks like it looks like I put product in it, but this is just where we are.
It does look like that thing that the kids are doing now, where they get the big thing up front and they get it
broccoli
permed.
hair.
Yeah,
they call it broccoli hair. Apparently, I don't know if they call it that, but people who make fun of them do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it does look a little
got a little perm going on,
extra crisp on top. Yeah. So I didn't mean to interrupt. I just saw myself in the camera and went, "Oh my god!"
Listen, you interrupted yourself. It's allowed.
It's a first. It's not.
Yeah, right.
So, okay, we're in a forest. The Stepp Cemetery is only accessible in this forest by a small dirt path, and it's this small rural cemetery with between 20 to 114 graves. I looked at probably. Let me see how many sources I used this week.
Between 4
17
and 20
sources. I used between 20 and 114. No, I used
4 sources.
I used 17 links, and apparently I used 9 videos, and all of them gave me between 20 and 114 graves, and they each said it multiple times. So I could not begin to tell you how many graves are there today.
So what? They want me to go count them? I mean, Jesus, can't somebody go count them?
Some were like very specific. I mean, 114's like, why don't you just say 115? Like, don't be a douche, you know? But then there was also like 32 graves, 56 graves. So I'm like, okay, well, I can't keep up. So
there's
at least 20.
Dozens of graves.
That's a great way to put it. There's dozens of graves there. Every source used a different number, but it's been around since 1851. The cemetery itself was established in 1856. So for 5 years, this was just kind of like a random little
burying ground.
People were just burying people here.
Cool.
And I bet they were thinking like, I hope one day other people do it so I don't look fucking weird for burying my family members here.
Imagine being the first one. Be like, I mean, we don't have a cemetery. Do I have to pick where the cemetery goes?
Yeah. Also,
it's like a lot of pressure.
Well, here's the other thing. So it was bought by this guy named Reuben Stepp. Obviously, that's where we get Stepp from. And he kept it for 30 years. He then sold it to a different guy who then sold it to a different guy. Basically, by the 1920s, it was owned by the state. The cemetery has about 50 tombstones, so they say, dating back to 1851, which is 5 years before. And the earliest one is from this guy named Private Isaac Hartstock, who fought in the War of 1812. So there are probably other unmarked graves, but since nobody was there to really label them, we don't know about that. And
so that's where the dozens come from, right?
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
And because I guess a lot of like vandals are coming in and a lot of teens, you know how the teens are?
Yeah. With their broccoli hair.
With their broccoli hair. They've been going in there and like kind of destroying the property. And so because of that, we also don't know how many graves are left or how many
the
graves
teens
are.
did it?
Damn teens. The teens, since the 50s, the teens have been coming here and doing this. So the paranormal activity has been reported since the cemetery's beginning. So since the 1800s. And it's locally known as like a very haunted area of Indiana. One of the most rumored, or no, not one of the most, sorry, one of the first rumored ghosts to be at the cemetery does date back to the 1800s, and it is one of Reuben Stepp's children, not to be confused with Reuben's stepchildren, because that kept throwing me.
That's a good point. Yeah. Reuben Stepp's stepkids.
So it's said that he roams the property, and apparently he's very angry, and he will approach anyone who trespasses, and he's like, don't come near me. But here's the thing. This apparently is not true. A bunch of sources said that was the first time people started talking about ghosts, but it was clearly made up because Reuben had 17 children. Apparently his name was Jim Bob Duggar, actually. But none of them were buried there, so it couldn't have been one of his kids. Reuben does have a grandson that's buried there, so maybe it's his grandson.
Why did they name the thing after him if he didn't even bury anyone there?
I think he's buried there, but originally they named it this because he owned the cemetery.
Oh, he just owned it. It wasn't like he was like using it for his own family. He just had the property.
Yeah, but you also hope that someone who like owns a cemetery like likes it enough that he's going to be buried in his own cemetery. Kind of says that he didn't trust his own
he's like a landlord
maintenance.
who's just like leasing it out to other people, but not using it for his own purposes. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, so
Oh wait, maybe he was like really rich and they buried people on his property. Didn't they used to do that? Like
oh
maybe they
yeah.
buried them, all his 75 not stepchildren, in the backyard. I don't know. He had his own cemetery.
Well, so apparently he did have two sons. Okay, I'm confused because I'm telling you, the amount of sources, you'd think I'd get something fucking straight. Can't do it. There are two sons. One source said it was Reuben's two sons, but that doesn't make sense when I finish the rest of the story here. So I'm going to go with another source that said it was just two sons that were here around Reuben's era.
Okay.
That there was a family who owned the land and they had two sons. When Reuben owned the land, he had 17 probably sons. So I don't think this is Reuben's family.
Doesn't match.
But a family who owned the land at some point had two sons, and when the father died, it was unclear which of the sons would get the land. So they ended up dueling, literal shooting each other duel.
Oh my God.
To figure out who would get the property next, which I love that it's so picture perfect of like, how about one of us kills the other and whoever's alive will get the land.
The remaining son will bury the other in their cemetery that they own now. Like
did they bring a shovel to the duel just to get it started?
They probably already had a hole ready to go. Like whoever ends up, just roll them on in.
That actually would be really convenient if you just dig the holes, stand at the foot of it, and then both just, and then you just fall right in.
You're done.
So story has it that both brothers have perfect aim and shot each other and they both died. Whoops. So now they're both buried there, and apparently because this is maybe an urban legend, maybe it's true, but it's so old that they don't have any marked graves. Nobody even knows when this happened, what their names were. But the story is two of the original ghosts is the two brothers who killed themselves on the land fighting to own the land.
Okay.
This is how men solve things. I don't know what to tell you. There could have been like any other way we did this, but
yeah. And it went the worst possible way.
Yeah, it's like, well, look at that. Neither of you get the land.
Wow,
so,
what a surprise.
Anyway, one popular part of the cemetery's lore is that the land was once used by a fringe group called the Crabites.
Ooh.
They're called the Crabites because they were led by this guy named William Crab.
By a giant crab.
By Mr. Krabs.
By a big crab that crawled its way to Indiana. I mean, listen, if a giant crab told me what to do, I'd probably do it. So I get it.
Well, careful what you say, because the Crabites were wild. So Reuben Stepp, when he owned the cemetery, he apparently built a little church near the cemetery. And I'm guessing that was for people to go do their mourning or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But he also said this church is available for any like parishes who need a church. Okay. So like if you're a local, as long as you're Christian, that was his whole thing. As long as you're Christian.
You can like do sermons here or whatever.
Yeah. And so I guess the Crabites heard that and went, great, let's wander on over there and see what this is all about. The Crabites are
all their little
they actually legs. You have to crab walk. Yeah. You have to
talk about a horror movie. Jesus. That's the scariest cult I ever heard of.
You know, when I was in elementary school, there was a game where you had to, it was essentially dodgeball, but everyone had to be crab walking. And it was.
Yeah, I remember that game.
God, that was just the worst.
Terrible. It's like, what, now you're going to hit me with things, with giant flying objects? Like,
with my tummy exposed?
Oh,
what?
Forget it.
If I had to crab walk today, I think all of my limbs would give out at the same time.
Yeah, the joke would be I would be laying on my back, and I would not. I'd be like a crab that just got beached.
Stepped on?
Yeah, stepped on.
So anyway, they're all crab walking to church, and Reuben Stepp alleged... Oh yeah, he built this church, and now they're going there. So the Crabites are a religious sect that believed that Jesus was born under an apple tree. So I guess they conflated the apple story and Jesus. They also believed that snake handling was necessary in a lot of rituals.
Oh.
They also believed that they themselves could resurrect the dead.
No.
And they believed that the earth was square, which is a new idea.
I have got to give them some props. This is very creative. Like, as far as all the cults we've covered go, this one's pretty unique.
I feel like they were like at a writing, like around a writer's table, and they're like,
Yeah.
how do we zhuzh this up? This Bible's too boring. What do we do?
Yeah, you know how they used to say, like when we were in TV school, they would say like, oh, to pitch a show, you say like, it's like this meets this. Or it's like this existing thing, except picture them as crabs. You know, I feel like they took a few pieces and were like, imagine a world in which all these crabs can raise the dead, you know? Can you picture it? I can picture it.
Imagine, okay, you're on an Earth. It is square. Yeah. It is square.
Oh, right. And you might fall off. That's part of the thing. That's part of it.
You know, I got to give them a little credit. I mean, I don't know anything about flat
We're giving
earthers.
them a lot of credit, and I'm all about it.
I don't know anything about flat earthers. Maybe they also think the Earth is square. They must, right? Unless they think it's just like one continuous line.
Oh, don't even get me started, Em. They think it's like a whole plane. They think it's like this, and then there's like stuff underneath it, like a.
Okay.
Like a.
Well,
I don't even know how to explain it.
Well, they're wrong. Okay, so.
Wait, what?
But I could at least give the people who think the Earth was square and in this crab, I can kind of see where they were going if they're taking the Bible a little too literally, because apparently in Revelations it talks about the four corners of Earth. So they were like, okay, so it's a square. So that one at least has like a really straightforward answer versus having to like explain your semantic your way into your theories. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's why they think the Earth is square. And I mentioned the snake handling and rituals, where we have not left that yet. So let's keep talking. William Crabb, he believed, I don't know where in the Bible this shows up, but it's got to be somewhere. He believed that he should be all the time carrying around water moccasins, copperheads, and rattlesnakes.
Oh, no.
Which, like, I'm just imagining one of those, like, those tropes of like the guy with the big parka who sells you watches from the jacket, and he's just got like a bunch of moving snakes.
A trench coat of snakes. Yeah. Forget it. It is 3 crabs in a trench coat, and he's selling everyone snakes. This is like nothing good can come of any of this.
But imagine if that crab with a trench coat full of snakes fell in love with a snake with a trench coat full of crabs.
Oh my god.
Meet cute.
Meet cute.
So, he believed that with these snakes, at any moment, he should be able to demonstrate getting bitten by a snake. And he believed, quote, the man with sufficient faith in the Almighty is immune from even bites of venomous reptiles. So basically, he thought, if you believe hard enough, even if a venomous snake bites you, the snake will die and not you, because you prayed hard enough and Christ will save you. Right. And they would literally perform demonstrations where someone from the congregation would get bitten by a fucking snake, and they survived. So skeptics believe that the venomous fangs were removed prior to this, obviously.
Yeah.
Because don't actually try that at home. The snake will kill you, no matter how hard you pray.
Yeah. That's kind of their whole thing.
Yeah. And so they would also that's the whole snake thing, that he just carried them around, and I guess if he felt like someone wasn't a big enough believer, he would just attack them with snakes. I don't know.
Was it like the snakes were because of the Bible? Like snakes, Bible, apple tree is Jesus. I don't know. Yeah, they already kind of apple tree. They
were already like messing with that whole apple story, right? So the snake, the serpent, would make sense.
Yeah, it could
I guess
just be like, we've defeated the snake that Eve was too weak to resist. Yeah. I don't know.
I saw a video come up on my TikTok forever ago, so I don't remember which side of the context is. I think it was a guy who was an atheist proving to a room of Christians that they weren't fully believing in God, because he held up bleach and he was like, drink this right now and just pray hard. He kind of did the reverse of this, where he was like, if you really believe that you're going to be saved, which obviously nobody like volunteered to drink the bleach. And he was like, yeah, because you know that you'll die and God won't save you, which is like, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
It just popped up on my TikTok, and this reminds me of like a reverse version of that.
Vibe. Yes, it sure does.
Where it's like, prove that you know God will save you in trials and tribulations. Let me
don't
put this
worry.
snake on your arm.
You're safe. Like, okay.
So then that's the snake thing. They also would, of course, speak in tongues, because why not?
I mean, if you've got the snakes, you kind of have to.
Dare I say parcel tongue, right?
Oh.
So They also would dance in the cemetery nude.
Okay, that I can approve of. That's fine.
Can't have a fringe group without excessive orgies, which they were known for.
Sure. Oh, wow. So they are really all over the fucking map because they're saying, oh, we're very religious. We're so religious that, like, the snake can't hurt us. And then they're like, anyway, let's all fuck each other. This is kind of
even the
wild...
snakes were in, like, a nest together at some point.
I imagine the snakes weren't even concerned, you know, just writhing around.
They also apparently would eat animal sacrifices from the cemetery, the works, basically. They were
Yikes.
Exactly what you expect to find in the woods, I guess, for a religious group with no church, and they have to borrow someone else's. So one woman even remembers her grandfather being paid back in the day to basically be like the security guard of the cemetery, and he would chase them out mid-orgy at night with a bullwhip.
Oh, well, they probably thought he was part of the orgy at first with that bullwhip, and then
they're
he was
like sticks
no.
and stones. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, apparently there's that testimony of a guy being like, I remember watching them mid orgy, and like,
holy
also
shit.
Like, how are they getting to mid or like you're a bad security guard if they're already naked and doing
well,
it.
He may have been just, you know, checking out the scene.
It's on a break. Yeah.
Taking a minute to like see where we're going with this before he decided to shut it down.
He's like, maybe I don't want to, be the bad guy here. Maybe I help you out. And then it got to be too much, and he saw that trench coat of snakes come off, and he went, "Oh my god,
this can't stand." No.
He said, "We got to get out of here." So, at one point, this is separate from the security guard. The actual police had to arrest 50 Crabites. Because they were obstructing a funeral, like a burial. Because, remember, they thought they could resurrect the dead.
Oh, duh. I completely forgot about that part.
So they went to some woman's funeral, and they were like, don't worry, family of the woman who's dead. We got this. We'll bring her back to life. And they're probably, like, fucking with her body, and, like, the whole family had to watch this happen.
And they're probably fucking because they have orgies there.
And but so the whole family is like, get away from our like dead loved one we're trying to bury.
That's bad.
Somehow there's an escalation. One of like the family members of the dead woman hit one of them, which honestly I would have too, so I don't blame that. But then it escalated into the Crabites saying that the family members tried to put dynamite in the Crabite church and like blow up their church. Okay. Which like that sounds like you're mad at the family, so why are you trying to resurrect the dead? I don't understand. Like, why are you trying to do them a favor?
Just like, they said that had happened before?
Yeah, they were like, I don't know. I mean, I obviously wasn't there, but apparently they accused some of the family members of the deceased person of like trying to blow up their church at one point.
Oh, God, what?
It sounds really messy. It sounds like a funeral I'd love to attend.
I was going to say, this sounds like something out of TLC, but... Yeah.
If my funeral doesn't sound that dramatic, I'm going to be so upset that there's a funeral.
I've already got it handled. Don't even worry. Whether I'm dead or alive, I will create some sort of diversion or 5.
I mean, a trench coat of snakes is probably good. You can do that.
I'm not going to lie. I did write that down in my notes of funeral for M on my phone.
People will there will be carnage, that's all I really want.
Sure. So. That's at the bare minimum.
It will be memorable. I would at least like to be a funeral people don't forget.
Again, bare minimum. Don't even worry about it. I've got it handled.
So, so they get arrested because they're obviously being a nuisance to this fucking funeral.
Yeah, a nuisance is, one word for it. Yep.
One word. And at court, when being like tried, when they're being questioned or interrogated, whatever the word is when they're at the stand, they start fucking screaming in tongues.
Okay.
And that's what the judge said. So apparently they...
Not this again.
Oh, God, not another one. So 5 of them, which is interesting, only 5 out of 50. So I don't know if they were like... I don't know what the story is there. But 5 of them were guilty of rioting. That's what the charge was.
Okay.
And then shortly after, more Crabites had to be arrested at another funeral because they were annoying the sister of the deceased at this one. Ugh. And basically, I guess, I'm sure she said something. This is a small rural town at the time. I'm sure she had heard about them. She probably saw them at the last funeral and was like, get the fuck out of here, like, and was criticizing them in some way where it was very clear she did not agree with their beliefs. So then they all surrounded her.
Uh-oh.
And this is the sister of the. Imagine like Xandy's dead, and at his funeral, now they just all surround you.
You don't even get like peace for a minute. Yeah. What the fuck?
And they start screaming in tongues all around her, like chanting over her as if they're gonna change her. I don't
especially
totally
if
understand.
you're very religious, like this is horrifying. You know, like if
Yes.
you're religious in like a different way than these snake people, like oh my god, that would be so scary and upsetting and disrespectful.
So, and also like it's on the worst day of your life. Like you can't even, you already don't have like your wits with you to even like stand strong in this.
Right.
Like, so it probably almost made them feel emboldened that like you were breaking down. They probably thought they were actually doing like a work in you or something. Ugh,
Ooh,
gross.
Ooh.
So anyway, however much of this, those are the two main stories I was able to find. And by the way, that's a shout out to, I think the site was called Paraholics, which I love that.
That sounds like us. Yeah.
They were the only source who like really like tried to go anywhere in depth with the Crabites. So I was really
They know
anyway.
they get it.
Yeah, they get it. They get it. They did not mention the trench coat of snakes quite like we do, but they did kind of get it.
It's okay. They're on their way. We get it a little more. They get it almost as much.
So people believe that because of all the Crabites, that was a derail with the Crabites, but it was too interesting to not mention. But they were known to go to the church on this property. They were known to be running away all the time from, mid-orgy. They were being chased out of this cemetery. They were doing all their rituals in this cemetery. They did their snake demonstrations in the cemetery. And so because of all this, people believe that their activities in the cemetery also left a paranormal residue causing activity now.
Oh, a paranormal residue. That's now good.
That I wrote myself.
That's good. Yeah, I like that. Paranormal residue.
So some visitors to the cemetery still see people in robes roaming the property. Now, I don't know if that means that, and not in a ghost way, like they see people in robes.
I was thinking the snake people. Okay.
Maybe. Can you imagine a ghost where he just throws a snake out of his pocket and he's at you?
Like, does the snake, I know we've discussed this before, is the snake also a ghost? Does he find living snakes? Like,
is the trench coat a ghost? Do trench coats have souls? I don't know.
Trench coat, help me. Now I've lost the plot aggressively.
So some have, so people walk around in robes. I'm assuming that they're real people because people have like reported these people in robes like following them home. Very creepy.
Oh, God.
This is where I stand firmly in the fact that I would rather have a ghost almost follow me home than like a man. I mean, man or bear.
Yeah. Man or bear
ghost.
or ghost.
I'm going to pick the ghost.
Yeah, same.
And
out of all three, I'm going to pick the ghost, quite frankly.
This is why also I think your side is always scarier because yours is actual true crime. If there's a man in a robe and I know he's a ghost, I'm a lot less scared than if it's just a man in a robe.
Exactly. It's like we have some built-in protections we can use, but with a real person, the clock's ticking.
Well, so people spot folks in robes roaming around. Apparently, they will hiss at you because now they think they're snakes. I don't fucking understand.
Ew, are they like pranking you? That's so annoying. If they're like teenagers trying to scare people.
I hope so. That would be much better than someone really thinking they're a snake and you're alone in the woods with them.
Now in the hierarchy, the teenager, he's up top because I think I can take him.
Yeah, somehow teenagers are all of a sudden less scary for a moment.
Just for one brief moment.
They have followed people on the trail. Apparently, they have just approached people and said that they're going to conjure dark spirits. People have seen people in robes and then heard chanting. So it's kind of assumed that either they're Crabite fans or maybe they're their own sect, their own fringe group, So, or maybe they're honestly like, I know I'm like throwing a lot of shade, but now let me do like the light side of it. Maybe they're just a little unstable, but they're like also just doing their own little, I don't know, witchcraft or something. I don't know what they're doing. So
there's no way to know. Maybe they don't have bad intentions. I don't know. Maybe
they just like to hiss at people. Leave them alone. Okay.
Leave them alone.
Somehow less scary people who are seen here are the woman in white because of course, and
always.
the woman in black because of course.
Oh my God, they have both? Wow.
I saw someone DM'd me and they were like, can you stop saying that there's always a woman in black in stories? And I was like, okay, then tell me a story where I haven't
Why
mentioned
would somebody say that?
I think they think I'm making it up. I don't know. But they were like, man, it's so overdone, or they're the DM. It said something along the lines of like, your stories are all starting to sound the same. And I'm like, it's ghosts, babe. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Wow.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry that they're not as. Let me call heaven and tell them to get more interesting for you.
Listen, are the snakes doing it for you, my friend? Whoever you are, the snakes have got to do it if nothing else can.
They were like, have an original story, and I was like, did you forget that I'm not writing these stories? I don't know. It's so stupid. Okay, so anyway, sorry to whoever that person was, but there's another woman in black, so get over it.
Oh no.
There's a woman in white and a woman in black. The woman in white is less known. She has like one little blip on the radar, and then the woman in black is the real showstopper here.
The star. Okay.
So the woman in white is often seen wandering through the cemetery, but very soon she morphs into something much darker and scarier. And then it kind of just ends there. There should be more information on that, but only 2 or 3 sources even mention her, and they were all vague. But I think that's, again, because the woman in black is so popular. Everyone's like, yeah, let's mention her, and now we don't have to anymore.
Yeah. Check mark. Move on.
So, woman in black, most common spirit in the cemetery. Many versions of her story. Like, many. Actually, I found one website where they just documented every single variation of her story they could find, and they got to like almost 30.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not going to go through all of them because I don't want to bore anybody, but I'll definitely cover it enough. So when approached, apparently she will either disappear or run away. She's also seen walking by the trees and then fading away on her own, whether or not you approach her. Others have seen her bending over, digging as if she's digging a grave, or
with her hands,
or exhuming a body. Yep, with her hands.
Oh, that's creepy.
And many report hearing her crying or humming while holding a baby.
Oh,
so
no.
The main gist of this, or gist, as Christine would say,
okay, shut up.
is that she is exhuming her baby and then holds it and hums to it.
Oh, that's dark.
Yeah, that's kind of the main thread of the woman in black.
Right.
In fact, her digging, I just said it. In fact, her digging is said to be her exhuming her baby. And the grave she is often seen by, or digging or crying by, is all the way at the back of the cemetery if you wanted to see the grave yourself. And a lot of people do. Apparently, this baby's grave that she is always near has become the most popular grave of the cemetery because people will leave a bunch of toys and trinkets for the baby.
Oh, wow. So there is an actual grave of a baby there.
Yes.
Wow.
And the grave has the name Baby Lester 1937 on it.
Oh.
And so everyone thinks immediately, that Lester must be her baby.
Sad.
But apparently, and one person actually got a picture of this like shadowy figure, and she's like in a dark veil. She's like, it looks like a real woman mourning. It was just super creepy. But anyway, the baby, everyone says, because it says Baby Lester, and she's allegedly digging up this baby and holding the baby. She must be the mom. But Lester isn't even the name of the baby. The baby's name was Paul Lester. Okay. And he was born stillborn. And no one, if you're going off of like historical fact of this grave, this woman that everyone's seeing must not be Paul Lester's mom, because Paul Lester's mom died in 2007 at 85 years old. So hang on. If the mom is the woman in black everyone's been seeing since the 50s.
Right. Okay, fair. She's like, wait a minute, that's my child's grave and I'm alive. Okay, got it.
And by the way, the mom, because she was around until 2007, she has heard about like this like very popular lore in Indiana that like Baby Lester's grave is a popular haunting ground, and it's like her dead baby's grave.
That's terrible. That would feel so invasive and awful.
She has said that the urban legend bothers her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which how could it not?
No, yeah.
I do think I'm speaking for her, and that's like so fucked up. But I will say, like, if this were the case for me, I'd be happy that at least like the grave is being visited, and like there's like trinkets and toys, and like people are paying homage to my kid. But like
as
at the
long
same
as they're
time,
not like pulling Ouija boards out and stuff, like some people treat it disrespectfully,
or like
probably.
Or even like that, like the fucking Crabites and like doing some like weird orgy on my baby's grave,
Ugh,
like
God,
oh.
yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, Em.
The computer read it as a thumbs up as I was talking about orgies on a dead baby's grave. Okay,
Em's computer was like, "We got it. Hold on, don't worry. We will nail it. We're gonna
orgies
put
on a
up.
Dead baby's grave. Yay!
Yeah, fireworks.
Oh, yeah.
Celebrate.
Oh
yikes.
God, that was bad timing. Okay, so
read the fucking room, Apple. Jesus.
So, where were we? Okay, so baby Lester, she's probably not the mom because baby Lester's actual mom has said, "I'm right fucking here," and also stop doing what you're doing. So then people are like, well, maybe it's not baby Lester. Maybe we're just associating a woman we see holding a baby next to a baby's grave. We're assuming that they're the same baby, but maybe there's another baby grave nearby.
Right.
And there are a lot of babies and children buried in this area. So for all we know, with like blueprint theory, maybe she's just sitting there holding her baby and it has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with that grave. Or it could have nothing to do with any of the baby graves. And she could, in this residual moment we're all saying, she could be holding her baby, grieving her husband or grieving another child.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, who knows?
So we don't really know what her deal is, but she's very heavily associated with the baby Lester grave.
Okay.
And she's also often seen sitting on this tree stump that has over time kind of taken the form of a chair. I think because so many people have sat in it, it just kind of has morphed into that. It has somehow become known as the warlock chair.
Oh.
And I think that's because, remember I told you there's a lot of variations to the woman in black. Some of the stories are that she's a witch. And so I think the warlock chair is because she was a witch sitting in the chair. I don't totally, there was no origin story to the warlock chair.
I wonder if it just like looks like a throne almost. And people are like, ooh, it's a warlock chair. That sounds creepy.
That's what I thought too. And I'm hoping I just saw like, not the best angle of it, but a picture I saw, it literally just looks like a fucking tree stump. Like I don't totally. I don't know what's going on there, but people are calling it the warlock chair. Maybe because people go out there and do rituals, and that's where like the head warlock sits. I don't totally know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
At any rate, because she is seen sitting in the chair. On the tree stump. If you sit on the tree stump, apparently she will curse you and you will die a year from today. So
a year from today. Oh God, that's rude.
So get ready. Don't sit in the tree stump unless you're ready. Some people have said it only happens if you're sitting there under a full moon, but also it's illegal to be out there after dark. So if you're out there during a full moon sitting in a warlock chair, you're probably already there for something nefarious. So or you're out there breaking rules anyway. So I can't really do anything to stop you.
It's like, oh, why are you breaking the rules? Because I want to die in 1 year from a curse. Like, really? Why don't you go home and watch a movie?
Touch some grass, girl.
Just like, you touch some grass, but not in this cemetery. It's closed.
Well, fun fact, the warlock chair has either been destroyed or removed, or the stump was removed in recent years, so it's no longer there, but people still see the haunting of the stump because they still see the woman in black, not the black woman, Jesus Christ. People still see the woman in black sitting on the stump.
So the stump now is a ghost too? My God, it's like I can't keep up with all this.
I'm kind of wondering, like, what is there anything that can't be a ghost?
I know.
You know?
I know. At this point, I can't think of a one.
Other than this version, like I said earlier, the woman in black, she might be mourning a different family member instead of this baby. So in the baby camp of the she's there mourning a baby, there are several stories. One of them being that she was so riddled with grief about burying her baby that every night until she died, she would go out there and unbury her baby to hold it and then rebury it. And just kept doing that over and over. And that's why we now see the residual haunting. People also say that she would just sit on the stump and talk to her baby every time after it was buried. People say that she died with the baby. Like, there's so many versions of her and this baby. Then there's versions of her about a teenage girl, a teenage daughter, And some of them get fucking extreme. One is like her daughter was decapitated and now she's like trying to help find her daughter's head.
What?
Some are that her husband died in a quarry accident, and so now she goes with her baby to say goodbye to her husband. Some of them are that it's her baby and her husband who died. I mean, think of any version you can, and it's probably happened.
Dear Lord.
One of the more popular, or I guess more newer stories, because this one happened around like the 50s, 60s, 70s. This story came out when like teenagers all started getting their own cars and they were finding little tuckaway areas to go drink and be bad teenagers. And
smooch.
And one of the stories that came out around then was that the woman in black was mourning her daughter, who was one of those kids who hung out in the cemetery doing bad things. And then she got drunk and sped home and got in a car crash. And now her body's buried there and her mom goes to mourn her. So I think that was probably just the teenagers being like, yeah, some girl died here one time because like she was so
no,
bad.
That's the parents being like, no, she died because she was doing bad things in the
You're
cemetery.
totally right.
Do you want to be that girl who died in the car crash?
You're totally right. Yeah. It's like, I knew a friend. She died. Oh, I knew this one girl. She died. Yeah.
She died.
Yeah. Don't do her. Don't do what she did because she died.
Don't do what she did.
So yeah, like I said, the story came out when our parents would have been kids. And it was probably just as an urban legend. That one's probably the least believable because it sounds like something one of the teenagers or their parents made up.
Yeah.
Although it could be real, but the only major... I'm sure there were car accidents going on around this area, but also remember, this is in the thick of a forest. There's no fucking cars around there. So
yeah. And also, like, isn't she holding a baby? Or am I like...
Yeah, but again, some of the stories are that she brought the baby with them to mourn the other sibling or the other kid that she had.
Oh, got it. She brought a baby. Oh, I understand. Okay.
Insert a woman holding a baby crying and then put any story to it and someone has come up with it.
And the baby's just there sometimes. Okay.
Sometimes the baby's just there. Sometimes she's there mourning the baby, which is why baby Lester's grave is such a big deal.
I see. Okay.
But sometimes she's mourning her husband, so it could be anything.
Nobody knows.
And during this 50s, 60s, 70s period is when the cemetery became a big hangout spot. Because again, the kids were getting all their own cars and they were looking for lovers lanes. And that, because also it was such a remote, isolated, secluded area, it was perfect to go like run away and like do whatever you want. So that's when the story started really coming out, even though they say the cemetery has been haunted since the 1800s, which does seem to be true with ghosts of like the two brothers who had a duel, things like that. Apparently there were probably ghosts the entire time, but it didn't really get popularized until more kids were there to spread stories about how dangerous it was and why they were there. It's like probably like the slaughter pen was not as haunted to most people until I started screaming about it.
Until M's voice rose above the hustle and bustle. Yes.
And then the woman in black, regardless of who she's mourning over, people still see this ghost either crying, they see her just sitting in the chair sometimes. And again, the people that she's mourning could be anyone from her husband, her baby, her kid, a friend, who fucking knows. One guy even states that this woman in black approached him and said, "My baby is buried here," which sounds like, but that sounds like to me like one of my friends who was like, "Yeah, I saw her. She talked to me."
And like, no, you didn't. Yeah, she even spoke to me, like like overdoing it to try and sell it. It's like, I believe you less now.
Another version is that that story about like someone with a hook like for a hand trying to like open the car door. There's literally a version. There's literally a version of that where she has a hook for a hand and she's there.
No way. Come on. Now you guys are trying too hard.
Anything is possible. I mean, I feel like in the 70s, that was when the hook story happened, right? So you could probably mesh those together.
You're right. Because it is such like a lover's lane, like warning, like a warning story,
Yes.
Oh my God.
The most outlandish one I heard about her was that she was a witch and the local kids hanged her dog because she was a witch. And so she cursed the people who killed her dog, and now she roams the ground waiting for them to come back. That was the wildest one I heard, probably.
Whoa. I mean, okay.
And apparently the dog was a German Shepherd. So because of that, a German Shepherd is often also said to be seen with her, or like a wolf-like dog is said to be seen with her. This dog has
that's not true.
I hope not too. But
I hope most of the upsetting ones are not true. But
also like, are there wolves or coyotes or anything in a not in a forest? Not in a forest. In a forest?
No.
I never know which animals go with which type of foliage.
Well, they're not. Well, where else would they go?
Well, because like we have coyotes in the mountains, so I don't know. I'm trying to justify why someone would see a dog out there.
I mean, there's definitely I grew up in the woods, and there are definitely coyotes, and I don't know about wolves out here, but there are definitely lots of coyotes. I feel like coyotes nowadays are everywhere, so I don't know. I don't know about wolves, but
well, people claim to see dogs out in the woods, which if this is an area for, I should have looked that up. I'm only having the thought now, but people see dogs out in the woods, and they claim that this is the dog that she lost. But other people say that they see a glowing dog who only sits by Lester's grave, like protecting the baby, which is very sweet.
My.
In some versions, the woman in black was a Crabite, and in others, her name was Anna, which I think they're trying to push her into more historically accurate stories, because there is an Anna buried on the property who did lose a child. So I think they're trying to be like, oh, well, she must be Anna.
It matches up. Yeah.
Then this stump, aka the Warlock's chair, that also has its own variation. So then think of like 30 versions of Woman in Black, 30 versions of the stump, and then every version of those combined. It's like
it's just like a never ending.
Yeah. So as for the stump, it was either struck by lightning, and that's how it got its chair form. Someone literally created the chair, like carved it out themselves. Some say that the woman in black carved it herself so she could sit next to her baby's grave. Some say this stump is where she died, which is why it's haunted. Like she died while sitting there, maybe of a heart attack or something. There's one story where like a logger, like a Final Destination movie, a log off a truck hit him while he was sitting on the stump and he died, and that's why it's haunted. So there's a lot of versions as to why that's haunted. Some people say that it's the reason why grass doesn't grow in the area, when really it's probably people walking around so often that it just kind of keeps the dirt there. But no, I still think like I wouldn't want to sit in it. I'm still one of those people where like if you put enough energy on something, it's
no, I don't play around with that either. I'm with you.
I'm laughing about it, but I also wouldn't fucking sit in it. So
no, and I don't recommend anyone try it.
Yeah, especially if there's a chance that you're gonna die a calendar year from that day. I don't want that on my
conscience. Hell no.
All these stories really started coming out in the 50s or 70s, like I said, when more kids started showing up, and people still love to visit to see if anything paranormal happens. I don't know if this is true, but it looked like there were some opportunities for like tours, but it's in the middle of a fucking forest. I think people like kind of create their own like self-guided tours.
Okay, just follow the crab.
Follow
He'll take you where you need to go.
The river of snakes, yeah.
Ooh.
But people say that I did see a lot of accounts on here that said that they didn't really feel anything, but it was also because it was during the day and they were with their group of friends, so maybe that's why they didn't feel anything. But there are some people who are like, this place is so fucking creepy, and there's no way you can't feel like you're being followed, and the weird remoteness and like the isolation of this area makes it feel like it's extra silent and eerie and uncanny. But people hear howling, they hear chanting, they hear crying from nowhere and everywhere all at once, which I hate. So it's like it's like in your own head, you can hear it. People feel watched, they hear footsteps walking past them, they hear leaves rustling like someone's behind them. They see orbs and mists, they see shadowy figures darting around and peeking around the trees. There's red glowing that is seen on camera as if they're eyes. Ooh. Electronics will malfunction. There's cold spots. People hear voices talking in the trees, and they smell oddly sweet odors, which sometimes can smell good like perfume, but sometimes bad like something rancid like death. And then this is my last note, and it kind of goes for the entire forest, but this area specifically is weirdly also known for UFO and Sasquatch sightings.
Oh.
And I don't know if that's because it was already known as like a hot spot, so people just kind of started
Like, I mean, it sounds like everyone's
I don't know.
tacking on stories to this place. Like, oh, and
Yeah.
another thing, there's a hook with it. You know, I feel like people are just adding shit to the story.
Snakes and crabs and hooks and ghosts. Yeah. So I don't know much about the UFO sightings except that people see things. But I'm sure if you're looking up in the skies, you know, I'm sure you can see stuff. But the Sasquatch sightings are the more interesting one because the amount of Bigfoot sightings in this area literally got this forest on Finding Bigfoot, like on the TV show Finding Bigfoot.
Shut up. It's famous.
This area is where most of Indiana's Bigfoot sightings are. Apparently, one source said that there were 8 sightings in 2015 alone.
Whoa.
Which kind of doesn't sound like a lot, but I guess in Bigfoot world is a lot.
To me, it does sound like a lot to me, especially in like one area, right? Like
that's true, yeah.
Especially if they were different people.
I will say the forest is 24,000 acres. So
whoa, okay.
A lot of opportunity for isolated hikers to start seeing and hearing things.
Okay.
And this is not me poo-pooing on like hikers seeing shit in the woods. That's half the reason I don't want to be in the woods. Like, I believe it. I fucking believe it.
Yeah, trust me. If anyone's gonna believe you, it's them.
But I also wonder if the number is heightened because people are having like kind of not mirages, but like that kind of like the like mental games are happening when you're in the woods long enough, you know?
Oh, yeah. And if you're already scared, like you're there to get scared and you're there to look for something scary, you're probably primed for it.
I guarantee you, if I went into the cemetery in the middle of the forest and the sun was starting to set, I would fucking hear something without
You would
question.
see Bigfoot within a matter of moments. You would call me and tell me you saw Bigfoot. I don't doubt it for a second.
Well, so anyway, I just wanted to at least put it out there that this place is very well known for Bigfoot sightings too. So and the UFO sightings. So if you're into ghosts, if you're into aliens, or if you're into cryptids, there's something for everyone
Maybe
over there.
Maybe it just happens to be in one of those weird ley lines or thin spots, you know?
Like
maybe.
One of the dots on a triangle, like one of the...
Yeah.
But anyway, nowadays the Stepp Cemetery is being preserved by the Indiana Pioneer Cemeteries Restoration Project, which it bothers me when a name that long doesn't have an acronym.
I'm so annoyed already. I tried it in my head too. I was like, seriously, guys?
IPCRP, the IP crap. So... whatever. And a lot of people still go, like I said, for the spookiness, but most often they leave trinkets behind for Lester. They're also probably there for some nefarious things, which I am not totally against sometimes. I'm into a good, creepy little moment. Maybe no orgies on my end, at least. But
yeah, maybe no defacing property or having an orgy. But other than that, free game.
Other than that, do what you want. Yeah. Anyway, beware. That is the Stepp Cemetery.
Very good, Em.
Thank you.
I know you don't need like my approval, but very, very nice story.
Like, I appreciate approval. I'm not going to say don't do that.
You? No, that doesn't sound like you. Nice. I agree with you. We don't do a lot of cemeteries, so it's kind of, and I for one always love the history of these stories. So I kind of love when you do something like this where there's a story behind it too.
Well, thank you.
Crabites.
I wish there was more of like a story, you know, where like I could be like
Crabites. That's insane.
That's I think the reason why I bring in so many of those little like quick deep dives because or shallow dives, I guess. I don't really know, but because I feel like mine's always like so this year this happened and then this happened this year.
Yeah, they're like
and it feels a little too I don't know.
Disjointed.
It just doesn't feel like yours has like a story to it, but then again, yours like factually happened, and I'm just pulling like 2 or 3 bullet points from each website.
And a lot
like
of
it's
yours
the best
are so
I can
much
do.
older. Like we don't necessarily have the sources to say what happened. Like a lot of mine happened in the current age, and a lot of yours happened 200 years ago in a rural area where they weren't keeping records.
Yeah, and by the way, this is whatever. This is a DM I got years ago that I still think about. But
oh no,
they were just saying they said something like like how they were asking how many sources I have, like, and it's like it always depends because like Christine has. court documents, you have testimonies, you have witness testimonies, you have like police files, you have like
newspaper
probably 20
articles,
20 documentaries about it. I have sometimes 2 blogs about an alien. Like I don't like I don't
like blogs on like Angel Fire websites. Like not even
yes, one of these was literally an Angel Fire website.
Yeah, like
there's only so much that I can do.
I'm not even knocking it. I'm just saying that's how it goes with your stories.
But someone said like, Christine's sources are better. And I'm like, Christine's sources are real. What are you talking about?
Literally, that's the thing that drives me crazy. When people are like, yeah, I agree with you.
Anyway,
I got a rude comment the other day too about that. And it was like, yeah, it was not very nice. I didn't even open it. They were like, it's time to shut down your podcast. I was like, okay.
No, well, okay.
Sorry.
No, I was like, well, I've somehow been able to find enough information on almost 400 topics. So I'm doing the best I can, folks.
I think you're nailing it. Okay, so whatever.
I'm doing the best I can with Angel Fire and fandom.com because sometimes that's all I get.
And Zach Bagans will sometimes pepper in a few fun little cutscenes we can throw in, you know.
I know. Well, I was watching a bunch of because I use YouTube quite a lot, but sometimes it's really like I'm gonna go ghost hunting in this location, but then it's like it's just someone who obviously filmed themselves going ghost hunting, and then like nothing really happens. So I'm like, well, do I talk about it or not? I don't know.
Right. And if they're not adding anything to the history, yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad because most of the time when I brought all this up just to say I would like to cover more cemeteries, but I really don't get a lot of meat from too many. So I was excited that there was actually a cemetery with enough stuff. I looked up. I don't know. I don't remember when I started these notes. I looked up unheard of locations. I don't want to I was trying to find a place that I don't know that not everyone's covered
below the radar. Yeah.
And usually when I look that up, it's also like good luck, you're not going to find enough information. This one I found, I was like so excited to like do a cemetery. So
I love it. I mean, it's not if it's near Bloomington, it's only a couple hours from me. You know,
is it really?
Yeah, we're creating our own little
You could go sit on the stump and let me know how it goes.
Yeah, Bloomington. I think that's where Indiana University is, right? So if
I think so,
if you guys are out there and you know about this stump, tell us the deets.
I would like to think there's like some cool, quirky philosopher professor who like makes them go out and hang out in the cemetery on like a field trip.
Like a psych professor who's like, this is how your brain tricks you into thinking you see like a ghost or something, you know.
I had one. His name was Dr. Hart. He was really ruthless about how ghosts don't exist and it's all in your brain.
Yeah.
It's literally the class was called Why People Believe Weird Things, and it was just
LOL.
And it was just all the ways that your brain tricks you.
Must be fucking packed to the gills nowadays.
It was my senior sem. Oh, that's interesting. No, like he did I gotta say he did a good job. Like for a skeptic, he said all the right points, but him and I always duked it out on whether or not like who was telling the truth. And he was the one who let me bring in ghost hunting equipment as like one of my final exams. Yeah,
I still think about that.
And then, sorry, last thing I'll say too, we used to have this thing, they got rid of it at CNU, but it was called the Wise Woods. Have I talked about these before?
No.
Oh, I love the Wise Woods. I don't know why they got rid of it. It was probably one of the worst things they ever did construction-wise. It was literally a big piece, like just I don't know how big it was, but a big chunk of land that was still old school woods that had never been touched. And it was in the center of the property. So they'd built around it. And it was just like this one patch that they left as woods.
Cool.
And philosophy teachers would take the kids out on really good days, and they had like benches out there and everything and a podium. So it kind of looked a little churchy. I don't think it was supposed to. It was supposed to be like a lecture hall
like
outside.
Like a little peaceful place in the woods.
And they would teach like meditation and stuff out there.
Oh,
and I remember
that's so cool.
I remember taking a class out there, and I just remember being like, wow, this is like the cool college thing everyone's talking about.
Yeah, that feels like something out of a TV show.
And then the next year they got rid of the Wise Woods. And ironically put, I think, the philosophy building or the psychology building or something.
That guy was like, I'm tearing it down, that one professor.
Anyway.
God.
Okay, I'm done rambling, Christine. It's your turn to ramble.
Can I go pee real quick?
Yeah, let me take a big swig of my gallon.
Please stand by. We have to step away.
All right. So I have a story for you today. This is kind of a unique one in that there are some professional athletes involved.
Oh, this feels like when I cover back when I covered the Fister, and it was like all the Milwaukee Brewers are like scared to
No,
stay there or
it's
something.
everybody who flies in to play the Milwaukee Brewers.
Oh,
They
right.
put them up in that hotel to scare them.
And they think Mr. Fister, who was a big Brewers fan, is like trying to scare them so they'll be too
and
tired
some
to
of them
play
refuse
well.
to stay there now, which cracks me up.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so it's not quite that, but I don't often venture into the world of professional sports for obvious
Are the Olympics
reasons.
getting to you? Is that why?
That might be subconsciously why. I hadn't actually put that together, but it could be.
Okay.
So this is the story of Sally McNeil, and I imagine you don't recognize the name. I didn't either, but I bet some of our listeners will be like, "Huh, that sounds familiar."
Okay.
Sally McNeil. She was born in Allentown, Pennsylvania in 1960. And as far as her childhood goes, her biological father left when she was really young, and was violent in the home and had abused her mother, had even kicked her mother in the stomach while she was pregnant with Sally.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so Sally had kind of a tumultuous upbringing. Her mother remarried when Sally was 3, and the couple had 2 more children together who became Sally's half sisters. And this is when it becomes an almost Cinderella story because Sally was not a favorite, that's a quote, in her own home. Her parents, especially her stepfather, openly preferred his biological daughters over Sally and her brother. And so they got basically the short end of the stick. Sally later recalled that even though they were younger than her, her sisters always got new clothes and special treatment, and she was just kind of cast aside. Like, I mean, very Cinderella, right? Like very cliche.
Yes.
Like the dad and the mom and stepdad in this scenario, neglected the first 2 children. In 9th grade, she was grounded for months after her parents discovered that she was dating a boy who was black. And
Oh, boy.
so they just, in general, were not great people, were very horrible to Sally and her brother. And as a way to cope with this, she turned to athletics. And that is where she started to shine. So her school didn't have a cross-country track team for girls. So instead, she joined the boys' team. And even though she was the only girl on the boys' team, I was also the only person on the team to qualify to compete at a state level. She also placed in many competitions as a highly skilled competitive diver. So she was also very good at diving to the point that she could have probably made Olympic level if she wanted to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
she was very, very good. She was like a athletic star in high school. But she didn't have the money necessary to pursue coaching and those kind of opportunities. And so instead she enrolled in state college and decided to become a gym teacher. But right before she graduated, 1 semester before graduation, she ran out of money. And with nowhere else to live, she followed her brother's footsteps and enrolled in the Marine Corps. And when she's in the Marine Corps, she meets this guy named Tony Loudon in 1982, and they start dating. And she soon falls pregnant with their first child. Tony proposes, and they have a daughter named Shantina. Now, Shantina was born with light eyes and blonde hair. And I say that because Tony, who was black, didn't believe Shantina was his child until they had a second child named John Jr., who was born with the same light features. And that's almost like a foreshadowing moment because let me just spoil it that he also does not treat her very well.
Okay.
He became violent and abusive once they were married. Neighbors on base, and remember, they're on a military base, so neighbors are often hearing domestic violence. Military police have to be called repeatedly. And so when Sally receives orders to transfer across the country to Camp Pendleton in California, she says, you know what, this is where I cut ties. I'm filing for divorce. And
We're done.
We're done. We're done. You're done. During her custody battle with Tony, though, Sally was pregnant with a 3rd child, whom she then placed for adoption. And as this custody battle wore on, Sally ultimately won custody of Shantina and John. The divorce was finalized in 1987, and she was very excited to start a whole new life with her kids, thousands of miles away from everything she had known. And it was there in California that she was introduced to the world of bodybuilding.
Ooh, okay.
I know. And
That also had to be probably really empowering if you come from like a shitty guy and you just dated a shitty guy, or
getting
you were
like
married to a
beaten
shitty
up.
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and now you can build your own strength, and that probably was part of it. So I feel like when we picture bodybuilders, it is like a big like 80s, 90s. Do you have that same
Yeah, I totally
like
Arnold Schwarzenegger, Venice,
exactly?
Muscle Beach. Yeah.
Exactly, the Muscle Beach type thing, 100%. And so it even in my notes says Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of the reasons that this became such a phenomenon back in the 70s, 80s. And when women began competing, initially it was more like a beauty pageant, right? Like they'd wear swimsuits and it was like, oh, they have lean muscle and like it's about how good they look. But pretty soon women focused on extreme muscle gain, kind of like the men had been doing. And Sally was one of these women where she was focusing on working out every single day. And while she excelled in the gym, her military career, unfortunately, was faltering. And that's because she had risen through the ranks to become a sergeant, but she was noted over and over for aggressive behavior and angry outbursts, behavior which reportedly eventually led to her demotion in the military.
Was she like on steroids for the bodybuilding?
She sure was.
Okay,
She sure was.
okay.
Yeah. Yes. They ended up ultimately. We'll get to the actual crime portion of this, but it was very much proven that she was on steroids. Yes.
Okay.
She's pushing on. She's even though her military career is kind of falling apart, she's doing great in the bodybuilding world. And in 1987, a friend introduces her to this guy named Ray McNeil. Now, Ray was also a sergeant and a bodybuilder, so they had a whole lot in common. They're basically their two main hobbies in life.
Yeah.
They have in common. And he had recently returned from being stationed in Okinawa. And Sally described it as lust at first sight.
Okay, girl.
Yeah. Whoa. So she and Ray immediately clicked, and she felt that this like gets me because this sentence, Sally said it was lust at first sight. She and Ray immediately clicked, and she felt he would make a good stepfather for Shantina and John. And I'm like,
dang.
Why? Because he was sexy? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that must have been something else about him.
There must have been something going on. I don't know. I have no idea. But that's
it's just like the
those two things
transition
don't
from
usually
lust at first sight to, and he'd make a great dad. It's like,
yeah, those two things don't usually go hand in hand,
right?
Like in terms of like first fantasies.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of like love at first sight. I just was surprised by that. But the two of them did immediately click, and they opened up to each other really quickly. According to Sally, Ray had also endured quite a bit of trauma in childhood. He was sexually abused by another boy in the house where he grew up. And so, he had a lot of his own demons. And she and Ray related to each other over things in life, good, bad, their trauma, their bodybuilding, their struggles with their jobs. And they fell in love and got married after just 2 months of dating. So pretty soon, they're like this power couple, right? They start competing together in bodybuilding competitions. They become like the most famous couple in the bodybuilding scene. And Shantina and John said that it could sometimes be difficult to go places with their parents because they're already mixed race children of an interracial couple in the 80s. And now their mom and stepdad are running around like in these massive, swole bodies and almost putting like they're you can't be discreet in public, right? Like the two of them look like those classic bodybuilders you picture when you think of like 80s bodybuilding.
They're like definitely like there's no hiding it.
There's no hiding it.
That's not something you can really physically hide either. Like if the whole thing is you are visually getting bigger. Like you can't hide visually they're getting bigger.
Exactly, that's the point. And on top of that, even though you're totally right, like you can't even really hide it. Not only that, they wore clothes, like tiny little things to show off their muscles, right?
Well,
so
it was spandex era, right?
It's spandex, so they're wearing like those tiny little like tank tops and stuff. And then these poor kids who are like in middle school probably are just like, Mom, come on. Like, you're probably so embarrassed, which, I mean, I'm not blaming the parents for that. I'm just saying, I imagine it's hard.
At 12, I would have had a problem with it.
I was embarrassed that my mom had an accent, right? Like, imagine, like, which I know is fucked up, right? Looking back. But as a kid, I was like, I just don't want anyone to draw attention to us, And so imagine, like, they would go places, and not only would they wear like teeny tiny clothes, they would pose and flex when the
girl.
public was looking, and people would clap and like take pictures.
Yeah, I would have had a full blown breakdown as a 12-year-old
It's so
or a kid
embarrassing
or
as a
however old.
teenager. Yeah, it's so embarrassing. But the children both really loved and were proud of their parents. So that aside, like to be clear, they did love their parents. They called Ray dad. They considered him their dad.
Hey, she was right then. He makes a great
I know
stepdad.
that. Well, she was.
Oh, okay.
No,
Well,
not
okay.
really, but yeah, they loved him for a bit, and for a minute it seemed like maybe he would be a great stepdad. They would tag along at bodybuilding competitions, and Sally and Ray even both won the Armed Forces bodybuilding competition, and sportscasters were like all about them, right? Like,
well, talk about a literal power couple.
yes, exactly, like literally, exactly. And
The Brangelina of muscles.
the
you know?
Brangelina, the Arnold, the I guess I don't even know who the Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I don't know.
I'll think about it.
Okay.
Transitioning from amateur to professional bodybuilding apparently is a very difficult feat, but very few people can like make that leap. But apparently Sally and Ray were like ready to do it, and the world was cheering them on. So when Sally's military contract expired, because of her behavioral record, she was not allowed to reenlist. And
Okay.
Ray decided he also wasn't going to reenlist because he wanted to focus on bodybuilding. Apparently, I guess I shouldn't be surprised by this, but amateur bodybuilding is a pretty big investment. You need foods. I mean, food alone to feed your calorie
Yeah.
intake, I imagine.
Yeah.
Supplements, gym memberships. Apparently, they spent a lot of time at Gold's Gym, which really tracks.
The very 80s.
Yeah, very, very. Coaching, travel, entry fees for these competitions. And I imagine a lot of body oil. That's not listed, but I can only imagine how much body oil you would need. And then like the laundry bills of like cleaning the body oil off of all your stuff. Anyway, that's where my brain goes. But Sally needed to find a way to support herself and Ray and the kids. So because she had dropped her military career, or was dropped, I guess, by her military career, she began wrestling professionally in like home videos almost that were
cool.
essentially fetish content.
Oh, no. Okay.
So it
I
was
see.
like she would wrestle with there would be like these choreographed wrestling matches with average men whom she would dominate in these like very like physical ways, and that was sort of like a sexual fetish. And there were no sexual activities being done in the video. Like there wasn't porn involved in making the videos, but I guess this was kind of
Did she know what was going on?
As fetish.
Like,
yeah.
So she knew it was kind of smutty for
Oh yeah.
certain men
That
who
was
were
like
into it.
the whole point of it. Like she would wrestle these guys. It was choreographed. So like it was all acted.
I didn't know if this was like, because in the 80s and 90s, like it was big to have like at home workout videos, like jazzercise videos.
Oh no, yeah, this
that's
was
what I thought you meant.
definitely, she was just doing this to kind of fill that niche of wrestling fetish, I guess, of women overpowering men.
You go, girl. Whatever you gotta do.
Yeah. And so a lot of it was like thigh headlocks, and I mean, it was all choreographed. So, but she decided eventually she didn't like that the person who was kind of running this behind the scenes was a man. And she said she would rather, in her own words, exploit herself. If anyone was going to exploit her, she was going to exploit herself. And so,
good for you. Okay.
I was going to say, and so she started producing her own videos.
Imagine her on OnlyFans today. Like she would make a killing.
Dominate.
A killing.
So she started producing her own videos, and she would travel the country to do these private wrestling sessions among her, basically this like network of loyal fans. And she called herself Killer Sally. That was her her character, So Shantina, her daughter, remembers being ashamed about her mother's career as a young girl. There was, of course, a stigma attached to fetish work. There still is.
Well,
but
especially back then.
Back then, especially.
Because we're over here being like, oh, get your bag, do whatever you want to do. Like, it's, but back then it was like, it had to be such a
And also, it's
dirty
not our
thing.
mom, I imagine it's
Yes.
not that
Bingo.
I'm saying like, oh, we should treat someone differently if they're your mother, but like, I'm sure there's also that edge of like, that same kind of embarrassment or like fear that people will make fun of you or, you know, that kind of thing. I'm sure there's more layers to it, especially being in your own
great
family. But Sally didn't mind the stigma. The money was pretty good. You know, she used to have to dumpster dive for cans to sell to the recycling center. She was not having to do that anymore. The bills were paid. And meanwhile, Ray is able to focus on bodybuilding. He's winning these major competitions. He actually ended up qualifying for the Mr. Universe competition, which is like the ultimate, like the top. And Sally said she loved him so much she would do anything for him. And Shantina said her mom was beyond in love with Ray. So at competitions, a whole family would stand on stage with young Shantina and John posing beside their flexing parents. So it was like almost like a circus family, right? They're like, look at these guys. They're the famous bodybuilding family.
I feel like I imagine them kind of looking like The Incredibles or something, like the little kids just standing on their big fucking shoulders. Just
yeah.
Like a just human
posing.
pyramid. Yeah.
And everyone has a cape on for some reason. Yeah.
Just a trench coat of snakes, actually. You forgot.
So they looked like a pretty happy family and they were like enjoying the limelight. They did everything together. But unfortunately, as we know, not just from this podcast, but from life in general, things are not always as they seem in the public eye. And behind closed doors, this happy family was actually going through a whole nother set of issues in that Sally had left one abusive marriage for yet another. So even though she had fallen in love with Ray or fallen in lust and claimed he would be the best stepfather to her children, he was very physically abusive. He would often beat her. He even choked her repeatedly in front of their young children.
Jesus.
One of Ray's best friends described Ray as kind and gentle, but he also had a short fuse and that you should be cautious around him.
So kind of gentle, but not actually kind or gentle.
As long as you are in line, he's kind and gentle. Like, ooh.
Yeah. Kind of gentle until you piss him off, and then he's actually neither of those things.
And then you better run. Like, oh my God. So Ray had worked as security at a bar, and somebody had picked a fight with him, and he ended up beating the man so badly he blinded him.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And that just gives you an idea of like how short this man's fuse really was, how he really could just
I do wonder. Because in my mind, obviously it's like had to be bad no matter what. But in my mind, to beat somebody up to a point where they go blind sounds like a lot of effort. But if you're that fucking jacked, like I feel like what we're really saying is he hit one guy with one punch and it was just a little too hard of a punch. Like not that it matters. I'm just trying to envision like how you even get into that situation where you've blinded somebody. Like, could he have just not known his own strength and like thought he lost it for a moment and hit him? Or was this a full blown, I'm trying to fuck this guy up fight?
I think he was going to fuck this guy up because that same friend who had witnessed this event also said, I've seen him do some horrifying stuff to people.
Oh, okay. Well, that does that. Okay.
Yeah. And I think from what we know, he was just a violent man and kind of only avoided arrest in that scenario because the police knew who he was. Like, he was kind of well known.
Okay, got it.
And on top of that, he also abused his own children. So when John was in kindergarten, he came home from school. This makes my heart hurt. He came home from school with a frowny face pinned to his shirt. And when Ray asked what happened, he said, "Oh, I acted out. I spoke in class and I got in trouble." And so the teacher put this frowny face on my shirt, and Ray beat him with a belt because of it.
Holy shit.
And he would regularly beat both children one at a time. The other had to watch. And John later claimed it was torturous to watch his father abuse his sister, Shantina, knowing he was next.
Yeah.
And John said that Ray was like the devil to him. So it's almost like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. That's how Shantina described him. He could be loving and fun and then just like on a dime switch to violent and angry. And before you ask, yes, he was also on steroids.
I gathered that.
Yeah.
Didn't feel the need to ask on that one.
Yeah. He was once arrested, actually, after breaking Sally's nose during an argument, but Sally didn't pursue charges. He also once beat her so badly her rib punctured her lung, like broke a rib and punctured her lung. And again, Little John and Shantina would witness Ray attack Sally in the home, and they just couldn't understand why she wouldn't leave, especially when Ray was attacking them, too. And looking back, I'm sure there's a lot of layers to this, but Shantina always felt that her mom chose Ray over her own children, right? Instead of protecting her own kids. And going off of that, friends of Sally described her as obsessed with Ray. Like, no matter, like, one of those just classic, like, toxic, violent, abusive relationships where it's like she just can't pull herself away from him.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's how her friends described it. And even when Ray started having affairs with other women openly, Sally stayed by his side. And she knew he had people on the side, and she hated it, but she stayed by his side. However, when she saw a story in the news about a bodybuilder strangling his wife to death, Sally said she had recalled all the times Ray had grabbed her by the throat and started to strangle her. And she kind of had this aha moment of, he's going to kill me someday.
I mean, I can't imagine, again, just in brute strength. Like, I already can't imagine somebody putting their hands around my neck, but someone that big with that much strength, and you know their stats and you know how strong, like, he could crush your fucking neck without even trying. Like, that's, I would be beyond scared.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. It suddenly hit her like, wait a minute, this has happened before, and now I know I could be next. So she decided it was time to leave, and she planned to take Shantina and John with her back to Pennsylvania to stay with family. And John, little John, remembers Sally telling him to be ready to pack all his things and leave on a moment's notice. He said in an interview, quote, "We were so close to escaping," which, talk about ominous. That night, February 14th, Valentine's Day, 1995, a call came in to 911. And it was Sally on the line. And she told the dispatcher, "I just killed my husband because he just beat me up." And hauntingly, in the background of the phone call, you can hear Shantina sobbing and screaming, "No, Dad, no."
Oh, God.
And first responders, of course, arrive, and they find Ray in a horrifying state. The officer, Gary Schultz, interestingly.
Shut up.
Dead serious.
Wow.
Arrived to find Ray in a horrifying state. He had been shot twice with a shotgun. The first shot had smashed 3 of his ribs and disintegrated most of his liver and created a 5-inch by 6-inch hole in his diaphragm.
Oh.
And his liver was protruding out from his body.
So I feel like people now are using against her the name Killer Sally that she used for herself in the videos.
Ding, ding, ding.
Okay.
You really nailed it. Yes. This definitely helped the case blow up in the press, right? Like, it writes itself, you know? So the first shot had disintegrated most of his liver. The remaining part of it was protruding from his body. His ribs had been smashed. There was a 5 by 6-inch hole in his diaphragm. And after she had shot him the first time, he began to crawl away on his hands and knees. And Sally shot him again, but this time in the face.
Oof.
And this shot shattered his upper jaw, tore out half of his lower jaw, and shredded his tongue.
His tongue? His
Yeah.
tongue? Oh my God.
Yeah. And so when police arrived, they were shocked to find him still alive on his hands and knees.
Alive and nearly upright is crazy. I would have thought like he's still fighting to survive. Is that, or do you?
He was trying to crawl away, and I guess when they found him, he was still on his hands and knees. He was completely disfigured. He was bleeding profusely, and he did eventually die of his injuries. But, obviously,
his liver was hanging out of his body.
Yeah, and most of it was gone, and so in the moment, it was a very horrific thing. And to think that his daughter, or stepdaughter, I guess, but Shantina was there in the background crying like, "No, Dad, no," and is watching this happen. Ugh,
Yeah, she had to watch him like getting up and trying to crawl away too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh my God.
It's
oh my
really, really, really dark. And Shantina and John, just to give you an idea, were only in 6th and 4th grade. So they're little.
God. Oh, that's trauma for the
And
rest of your life.
for sure, big time. They've already had enough trauma, I would imagine, but now this on top of it. And when police arrived, they put them in the back of a squad car, and the kids were hysterical in the back of the cop car, sobbing for their mom. And Shantina was trying to kick the window to try and get out to get to her mom. Like, they were just so scared and overwhelmed. It just breaks my heart. So they get to the police station. Sally tells investigators she shot Ray because he was attacking her, and they informed her that Ray died at the hospital and now she was being arrested for murder. So Shantina and John were allowed to see her for a few minutes, and there's footage of this on camera in the interrogation room. They tearfully told her that they weren't mad at her. And Shantina asked if Sally was in trouble, and Sally said, "Yes, I am." So John said he overheard a police officer saying Sally wouldn't go to prison if she killed his dad in self-defense. And he said to his mother, I mean, this poor thing, he's in 4th grade. He tells his mother to explain herself so that she can go home. And Sally tells him it's not that simple, I'll get back to you when I can. And the family hugs. Shantina and John are transported to a group home where they were more traumatized or traumatized again. And felt totally abandoned and confused. And eventually,
and also
Sally,
sorry, I was gonna say that's the night when a kid really needs their mom.
Exactly. That to be alone and not know anybody. I mean, thankfully they had each other. At least they were together. But to be so little and not understand, and for John to say, "Oh, just tell them," tell them why you did it, then you can come home. And that fear. And thankfully, eventually Sally's family came from Pennsylvania to take them home. And so they at least had family. But yeah, that night where you don't get either parent, I mean, oof.
Oh, God.
So Sally, meanwhile, was released on $100,000 bail, which was paid for by her wrestling fans who gathered the money to get her out. And her defense lawyer, who was a public defender because she couldn't afford a private attorney, started developing a strategy that focused on portraying Sally as having BWS, which was called battered woman syndrome. Battered woman syndrome described the behavior of women who endured violence from their partners, and these women might use violent force to escape their abusive situation, which was considered justified, often necessary. And the signs of battered woman syndrome are today more often diagnosed as PTSD and are not, it's battered woman syndrome is not an official, it's not in the DSM or anything like that. So in her defense, Sally claimed that the night she killed Ray, he had come home from the bar late, having spent Valentine's Day with his girlfriend, with another woman. Yeah.
Of course.
One of Ray's best friends was at home with Sally, and she was in a bad mood about Ray, so the friend decided to leave and pick up dinner, but Sally asked him to stay. Apparently, things usually were more peaceful when this friend was around, right? Instead of the two of them being alone, he was almost like
right. So she almost was hoping that he would be with her. It's like, at least he won't beat me when he's with another woman.
Around. Exactly. And he said, "No, I'm going to go grab food, but I promise I'll be right back." Well, famous last words, because by the time he returned, Ray had come home and the chaos had unfolded. Police were already there. Sally said when Ray got home, they had gotten into an argument because apparently he had bought chicken from an expensive grocery store that she knew she couldn't afford. And she was the primary income of the family, the sole income of the family. And so she kind of called him out for buying this expensive chicken at the grocery store, and then said, "Where were you with your girlfriend?" And I guess that's when he started choking her. And 12-year-old Shantina corroborated this. She testified that although she was in her bedroom, she knew Ray was strangling her mother because she had heard it happen so many times.
Oh, she was used to the gagging sound. Oh, my God.
She said, "You never forget that sound."
No, I can't imagine you do.
Traumatizing. So Sally broke free and ran to the bedroom where she kept a sawed-off shotgun. And she explained that she owned this gun for safety, but she often used it as a prop in her wrestling and bodybuilding videos in which
that's
she
gonna-
portrayed Killer Sally.
That's going to come back and bite her in the ass.
So yeah, that's rough. Sally said she loaded the shotgun with one bullet and shot Ray, and this bullet broke his ribs. And even though at first he wasn't dying of the injuries, it became a lethal shot because he eventually bled to death internally in his chest and abdomen. But Ray advanced on Sally in a rage, so she shot him again, this time in the face. Now,
Okay.
hearing these shots, Shantina thought that Ray had slammed Sally into furniture and that he was going to kill her. So she burst out of her bedroom holding a baseball bat, prepared to defend her mom. Instead, Ray is on the ground covered in blood with like the most horrific, gruesome injuries. And, you know, this story then unfolded the way we talked about it, and it became a media sensation. So, of course, reporters take this on with Killer Sally, all this. They call Sally a pumped up princess and brawny bridge. They ran
Okay,
headlines
relax.
like literally tone it fucking down. Okay.
Back up. Like,
Back the
yikes.
fuck up. They ran, go touch grass, as Em said earlier. Go touch a little grass. Go sit in the wise woods and think about what you've done. Is that what it's called? The wise woods?
The Wise Woods, yeah.
I'm like, I love that so much. So they ran headlines like, instead of pumping iron, she was pumping bullets into her husband.
Oh my fucking
That's
god.
not even clever.
Well,
What?
yeah. I mean, I feel like this was just the perfect ammo for like women hating men to just like really finally be like, see, look what they're all about, you know?
See, go home and feed your children, you know. Ugh,
Yeah.
God. News stations, of course, focus on Sally's physique and called into doubt that she could be abused because she was so strong.
Oh yeah, she was asking for it.
You can't win as a woman. It's like, how could you be beaten up? Look how many muscles you have.
It's like, look how fucking big he was. Are we not
Exactly.
playing if we're going to compare her to other women, we should compare him to other men. And then what do you know? They're the exact same.
Yep, and just like you had already alluded to, it was revealed that both Sally and Ray were using steroids. On the night he was killed, Ray had 5 different types of steroids in his system, and Sally had 1.
And that one was too much compared to his 5, I'm sure.
I'm sure. But either way, people began to blame roid rage for both Ray's attack and Sally's defense. And, you know, the idea that like all of these the steroid misuse led to like this elevated anger. I mean, the fact that she had even been fired from the military for her like outbursts and the constant violence in the home. There was a lot that people pointed to the steroid misuse for that. But neither the defense nor the prosecution focused on the steroids. Instead, the defense was concerned with a long-standing pattern of abuse in Sally's marriage. The prosecution focused on the same thing, but a different angle. According to them, Ray wasn't the sole aggressor. In fact, investigations revealed that Sally herself had a long history of aggressive and violent behavior.
Oh, wow.
It had,
Okay.
like we said, it had cost her career in the military. Ray's friends reported Sally sometimes picked fights with Ray and kind of like egged him on physically, you know, like with shoves and trying to rile him up. Sally once discovered that Ray was having an affair with another bodybuilder, and so when she was at a competition and saw the woman in the audience, she grabbed her by the hair, pulled her to the floor, and punched her repeatedly until she was pulled off of this woman.
Wow.
And as a result, she was banned from competing for a year. So they both have this like just tumultuous history of violence with each other, with other people. And she was also reportedly involved in physical fights with neighbors, even the police. One time she tried to fight the police when they came to like arrest her. Just a lot of red flags.
And this is all documented. So it is factual that she also was. Yeah, I mean, she was, you're right, with the military thing too. Yeah, okay. Not that doesn't excuse anything, but that interesting. It makes sense because if they're
paints
both
a broader picture, like a more
if they're both quote roided out, you know,
Yeah.
that they would both be dealing with this.
right, exactly. And like it seems like, I mean, we already talked about how it was lust at first sight and how it was this terrible abusive cycle where she just was obsessed with him, you know, like, and then to add steroids into that, I mean,
Yeah.
good luck, you know. One of Ray's friends said that he loved the entire family, including Sally, but that their relationship was extremely toxic from the beginning. Yeah. And apparently Ray had told his friends shortly before his death that he was in love with another woman and was planning to file for divorce. So
Yeah, Miss Valentine's Day, probably.
Yeah, things were getting heated. And the prosecution believed Sally actually attacked Ray in a fit of jealousy, not self-defense. And so they charged her with first-degree murder, claiming that this was a premeditated killing. But Sally insisted that in all the time she had a gun in the house, it had never occurred to her she might have to use it against Ray. And she stuck to her story about this being self-defense. However, that's when they brought in the forensic evidence. So Sally said she had run to the bedroom, grabbed the gun and 2 bullets, shot Ray once in the living room, and immediately reloaded for the second shot. So to reload the shotgun, Sally had to open it and release the first slug shell, which would fall to the floor where she stood. But that slug shell wasn't in the living room. It was in the bedroom. In other words, she didn't bring 2 bullets with her. She loaded the gun once, shot Ray, returned to the bedroom, got another bullet, reloaded the gun again. So he'd already been basically...
He was already down.
He was down already, yeah. And so she went back and reloaded a second time and shot him again. And Sally also claimed that Ray was still standing and advancing on her when she shot him the second time in the face, but the blood spatter from the second shot didn't line up with the story because it covered the inside of a lampshade near the spot where Ray fell. And so to be inside the lampshade, it would have had to be coming upward from the floor, if that makes sense. Like the inside of the shade had spatter, meaning it came from below.
Right.
And so that evidence indicated Ray was lying on the ground when Sally shot him in the face the second time. So according to later coverage by the U.S. Supreme Court, forensic evidence also showed that the fingernail strangulation marks on Sally's neck may have been self-inflicted.
Oh, gosh. Were they, because they go the opposite way that they should or something?
It's actually the nails. His nails were not long enough to have left these kind of fingernail marks in her neck, is what the
it was the 80s,
said.
those acrylics.
Those giant French nails.
Yeah.
So the evidence cast some doubt on Sally's story, as did testimonies from Ray's friends who spoke on Ray's behalf and insisted that Sally was also a very violent partner in her marriage. In the prosecutor's words, violent women cannot be battered women. So that's their pitch here. So the trial began on February 14th, 1996, which was a year after the killing. And in a documentary, the prosecutor said, "Good lawyers want the trial to be poignant, so why not start the trial on Valentine's Day?"
Okay.
Wow. All right. Sure, I guess, if you're going to be, dramatic about it. Shantina took the stand, poor thing, to describe Ray strangling her mother, and she insisted that she knew the sound too well to mistake it, and that she indeed had heard it coming from outside her bedroom.
Sure.
She became emotional during the examination and the cross, so the defense attorney asked that she be excused. And because of this, Shantina felt she didn't get a real chance to paint a picture of how egregious the abuse was. Like she almost kicked herself for being too emotional and not being able to paint a full picture. And Little John, didn't get the chance to testify at all. He felt he was denied the opportunity to tell his mother's story. And so both of them felt like they weren't given enough space and time to share their story on behalf of their mom. And only one friend took the stand to testify in Sally's defense because she was the only one who knew firsthand about Ray's physical abuse. She said she had seen Sally with bruises, with broken bones after Ray had attacked her in the past, and Sally had mostly hid it from her other friends because she was ashamed. But there were also military records of Ray's violence towards Sally, and even though now they've proven that most likely Ray was physically abusive toward her, the question now became, was this self-defense? Was she in immediate danger when she killed Ray? Or did she just decide, this is it,
right,
he has to go and I'm going to kill him? So against her lawyer's recommendation, Sally took the stand. And during questioning, she was extremely rigid. Her lawyer explained she was following Marine Corps training, and she answered every question with yes, sir, or no, sir. and showed no emotion when the prosecution asked her about loading the shotgun and shooting Ray. So the prosecution asked Sally whether she went by the name Killer Sally. She said no, because she didn't consider Killer Sally her actual name. And to her, Killer Sally was this like character she was portraying, and not like even a nickname in real life. Like nobody in her real life actually called her that.
But you know, the first time that she put those two things together, she went, "Oh fuck!" Like that's
Face
totally.
palm. Oh, they're like, oh, they're gonna fucking latch onto that. Yeah. So she was like, no, I do not consider that my name. And so promotional videos of Sally holding the murder weapon as a prop and calling herself killer, all this stuff basically was deemed irrelevant and therefore inadmissible by the court, because she's like, I don't consider myself that. That's not my name. And so
that worked out.
That was a character. It's not her.
Well, so go ahead.
Sorry.
I was going to say, so are there technically out there for like true crime fanatics? I don't know why you would want this, but maybe you do. Are there home videos you can buy of Killer Sally literally holding the gun in the videos?
Oh, I don't know, actually. I mean, probably somewhere.
You know, someone would watch that and freeze frame it and tell all their buddies, like, fun fact about this scene,
God.
you know?
Yeah, I wonder. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe somewhere. It seemed like the way it was described, it felt very like amateur, like she just did it for her fans mostly, you know? So I don't think it was ever like broadly distributed anywhere.
Okay, got it.
But probably somebody has it in a basement. So
someone has a copy, and yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so one of those blank VHS tapes might be very alarming. Let's see. But the prosecution was able to argue that Sally lied when she answered no about being Killer Sally. So, oh God, it's all just semantics, you know? So they were allowed to present the videos and promotional materials in court because they argued she said no, but she was lying. So we do want to bring all the Killer Sally promotional materials in to court. And they did. And it was extremely damning. Sally's lawyer believed she'd be convicted of first-degree murder. He was like, she's going to life. She's going to spend life in prison. Like, there's no way around it. But after 3 days of deliberation, the jury found Sally not guilty of first-degree murder. And this was shocking.
Wow. Yeah.
To her own lawyer.
Especially back then, like for women, I thought, I was thinking for sure she was a goner.
She was done for, yeah. Instead, they found her guilty of second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 19 years to life in prison. So outside of the courthouse, a member of the jury told reporters the jury didn't believe that Sally's life was in imminent peril when she shot Ray, which was a requirement for killing in self-defense, and that's why they decided second degree made more sense. So John and Shantina stayed permanently with Sally's parents in Pennsylvania. And John said that although Sally's parents had struggled with alcohol use disorder when Sally was a little girl, Shantina and John grew up well-loved in the home and in their grandparents' home, and said it was a blessing that they took such good care of them. So at least there's that silver lining. According to John, he actually felt relieved when Sally shot Ray. He said, even if he lived, he would never be able to beat me, my mother, and my sister again. I knew that it was over.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
I know. I mean,
what a tough thing to admit, but also, like, who could judge you for that?
Especially as a kid, you know? I mean,
yeah. Like, you just want someone to stop hurting
scared. Yeah. For a while, Sally's family traveled to California once a year with Shantina and John to visit Sally, but they eventually stopped visiting. Sally said in an interview, "You can't expect a lot from your family. You can't make big demands because they have a life to live out there." Which I feel like it's sad because I feel like she never got much from her family. Like, she was second-class citizen in her own home because she wasn't a bio child of her father. Like, it's just sad. It's just sad that she's like, no, you can't expect too much from your family. It's like, well, not in your experience, you know? Anyway. Sally repeatedly filed appeals from prison, and her conviction was overturned, but the state of California took the case to the U.S. Supreme Court, and then they reinstated the conviction in 2004. Ultimately, she served 25 years in prison. Imagine this. She got out summer of 2020. So, like, what a time to re-enter the world.
Oh, my God.
Of all times, you spend a quarter of a century locked up.
Do you think that's why she got let out?
Oh,
I know
that's a good point.
a lot of people ended up getting earlier releases because of COVID.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually don't know the answer to that, but it's entirely possible. So, upon her release, Sally received housing, rehabilitation, and counseling reserved for veterans. And she met another veteran who was previously incarcerated, and they fell in love and got married. This makes me so nervous.
Girl, come on now.
Like, just take some time to yourself. I guess you had 25
years. Be single for a minute. Be single for, well, yeah, I guess you were single for 25 years.
I guess you did. I had some time to think about everything. But yeah, so Sally rekindled her relationship with Shantina and John, who now had their own kids. So she got to meet her own grandchildren. And she focused on moving forward with her life to enjoy her freedom and time with her family. So essentially, at the conclusion of this documentary, Killer Sally, which is on Netflix, by the way, Sally seemed pretty content. She, had reunited with her family. She was employed at a warehouse. She was remarried. And she said life is good. So hopefully, all the tumultuous times are in the past. There has been some criticism from people who feel that the interviews with Sally are, one-sided, obviously, because Ray was killed. For example, one of Ray's friends felt that Ray was unfairly portrayed in the media due to racial bias and that not enough people acknowledged Sally's own history of violence. But others believe Sally was unfairly convicted because she wasn't a perfect victim. So it's like, It's all very nuanced and very layered. I don't think there's a right answer. And although it's true that Sally had a history of violence, it was also true there was documentation of Ray beating her up and harming her kids. And you can't overshadow that with anything
Both people
else.
Can be guilty. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. She wasn't a perfect victim. Nobody is. So the prosecutor said that a violent woman couldn't be a battered woman, and a newscaster asked whether Sally was a strong woman or a victim, which, yikes.
You can only be one of either.
A strong woman or a victim? That just makes me want to scream, okay?
That was insane, yeah.
That's like the most insane thing I've ever heard. Lee
and for a woman to be asking, right?
It doesn't say. It just says a newscaster.
I thought you said that she was a woman. No, either way.
I doubt it.
Beyond
I doubt it, but who knows? So Lee Goodmark is the author of The Imperfect Victim, and Lee says that survivors of abuse can be both strong women and victims. Duh. Okay. And oftentimes are. Just saying. And according to her, Goodmark, that is, society has a specific idea of how survivors of abuse should act in order to earn sympathy, which leads sometimes to the criminalization of survivors who don't fit the mold, such as Sally McNeil. And that is where we end our story today of Sally McNeil, Killer Sally.
Great story, but, my usual comments. Well done, Christine.
Yes, let me send you a photo of the two of them just because I feel like it helps put from that time in the 80s, 90s, you can see like how the fucking media ate this shit up. Hold on. Like it's so not surprising, especially when you see pictures. It's like, oh yeah, I can see that the magazines,
Oh, come on. Yeah, immediately.
Right?
Yeah, I totally get it.
And the pictures of her, there's some where she's like holding up like a whole nother person. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So,
I mean, they're both stacked. Like, they're... Wow.
And it's sad because they had such a unique partnership, and...
They really could have been the power couple.
Right? And
I guess they were for a second.
They were for a minute, and they could have really run with that, but instead it just spiraled into chaos. It's too bad. It's really too bad.
Wow. Well done, Christine.
Thank you. I hope she's doing okay. I hope the kids and grandkids are doing okay. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's... I don't know. Gotta be tough.
I just always wonder.
Well, what are you up to for the rest of the day?
Well, I guess I'm recording an After Dark with my friend M. What are you up to?
Nothing. No. Do you have a topic in mind, or are we doing another show and tell? What are we doing?
Oh, I have a mini, it's like a show and tell plus an interactive show and tell. It's an interactive show and tell. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Well, if you'd like to see us continue our ramblings, you can head over to Patreon. You can also buy our book, A Haunted Road Atlas. You can also buy our other book that's coming out next month, A Haunted Road Atlas Next Stop. You can also go onto our website and look up tour tickets. You can also go on our website and submit a listener story for our listeners episodes at the first of every month. And you can also go drink some water, you thirsty little rat. And
That's
why
we
drink.